When Pokémon Champions was first announced, one feature that immediately stood out to me was the fact that it was going to be on mobile for the very first time. I thought it sounded incredible, but there's a big difference between being on mobile and being worth playing on mobile. I spent the past few weeks playing on mobile, and now I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with it, and can it compete with the Switch console version? So let's get into it. Pokémon Champions launched on Android and iOS on June 17th, so we've had a few weeks to see how it really holds up. The good news is that it isn't some super stripped down mobile version. It's essentially the same game as the Switch game, but it's been ported over to mobile. You might be asking, why are you making this video if they're essentially the same game? There are some differences that I do want to talk about, some things that have been good, some things that have been bad, and everything in between. The biggest pro is very simple. It's that it's never been easier to play competitive Pokemon. You can do it from your phone, you can do it anywhere. I didn't realize how much I'd appreciate competitive Pokemon being on mobile until it actually happened. I've been playing Pokemon at the gym pretty frequently now, and I've basically replaced Doom scrolling with Doom laddering, using Pokemon that should just never be at games for fun. I've also seen people at weddings and other events, like winning tournaments, so that's pretty cool. It's almost like we're living in a Pokemon world where you can play games whenever, wherever, with whoever, so it's pretty cool. Another huge plus is that your Switch and mobile versions can link together. Your Pokemon in-game currency and your ladder ranking all are linked together, so it genuinely feels like one account instead of two separate versions. That said, you can only link it to one account at a time, so if you have a Switch and an iPad and a phone, you're going to have to be logging out of that phone and iPad to bounce back and forth between the two of them, which is kind of annoying. There's also full crossplay, so whether your friends are on Switch or on mobile, you can play against them without any issues. And once you're actually in a match, the experience is surprisingly close to what you'd get on the Switch. Matchmaking has been fast, battles have been smooth, and I've had no trouble finding opponents across a wide range of skill levels. For a game that's been out for less than a month, that's a really good sign. There are some issues though. Pokemon Champions definitely feels like it was designed for the Switch first, and then it got ported to mobile later. Most of the time that's perfectly fine, but the controls are where I notice the biggest difference. Here you can see a side-by-side comparison of the Switch version and the mobile version. On Switch, navigating the menus with buttons feels really easy and intuitive. On a phone, you're tapping much smaller buttons, and it's not always quite as intuitive to use. The biggest offender for me is this long and narrow back button in the corner of the screen. My thumbs are big and round, the button's long and skinny. It is not a match made in heaven. To make matters worse, the screen barely changes, and your thumb is covering the area that does change when you connect with the button. I've caught myself mashing the button just to make sure that I'm at the main selection screen before inputting all of my moves all over again. It's not game-breaking, but it's one of those little annoyances that tips the scales in favor of the Switch experience. Personally, I'd love to see the UI become a little more intuitive with that, like, there's a Pokemon on the left and the Pokemon on the right. I'd love it if when you're selecting moves for the Pokemon on the left, the overlay was blue, and if you were selecting moves for Pokemon on the right, the overlay was red. If you wanted to get really crazy, Game Freak or the Pokemon Company, what you could do is you could have that overlay match the color of the Pokemon on the screen. It'd be really cool. I'm not expecting that. It seems a little ambitious, though. I have run into some issues with connectivity, not actually matching into games, but occasionally what will happen is when I'm in a match with somebody, there will be this long communication circle that's just constantly ongoing, and since the game doesn't tell you whether it's your issue or their issue, you're just kind of stuck in this communication purgatory, waiting to see what's going to happen. I've remedied it by backing out of the game and coming back into it. It would be nice if the game communicated clearly who was at fault, so you could just kind of be like, oh, there's an issue on their end, I'll just stay on the screen. So that way I'm not creating an issue on my end, because I have this theory that people are both logging out of the game and both re-entering, and it's causing more communication issues. Fortunately, though, it points out a new feature unique to Pokémon Champions that wasn't in other games, and that's that you are no longer going to get a loss from disconnecting. In the past, disconnects were automatic game losses, and that is not the case anymore, which is exciting. I haven't run into this issue on the Switch yet, and overall, it's only happening in maybe 1% of my games, so it's not a major issue. It does occasionally come up, though. Overall, I think it's in a really good place, and I think this is the kind of issue that they'll fix with future updates. The biggest unanswered question right now is competitive play. We're a little under 2 months away from the Pokemon World Championships, and at the time of recording this, there's been no announcement on whether Pokémon Champions on mobile will be playable at official in-person competitive events. Several regionals have already used Pokémon Champions successfully. The first one did run into a few issues, but since then, things have been smooth sailing. And that said, all the events were played on the Switch. So if your goal is to compete at in-person events, I'd still plan on owning a Switch until we hear otherwise. So, it's time to make the decision. Is Pokémon Champions on mobile worth your time? I'd say absolutely. If you already own a Switch, I think it's the better overall experience. The buttons feel better, the overlays feel more intuitive, and it's clearly the platform the game was designed around. But if you don't own a Switch, or you were thinking about buying one just to play Champions, I don't think you need to spend your money just yet. The mobile version is a genuinely great way to play competitive Pokemon. In fact, over the past few weeks, I found myself playing more on mobile than I have on my Switch just because I've always got it on me. And honestly, that's the biggest compliment I can give. If you found this review helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you drop a like so more people could see it. And if you want to see differences between the two versions, I recommend checking out a few videos on my channel. The Mega Barbicle video, I used exclusively the Switch to play on, and you should check out the Mega Swampert video that's going to be coming out next week. Mega Barbicle video is all on Switch. Swampert video is going to be on mobile. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, also click the subscribe button. And I don't have a catchphrase, so this is the end of the video. Goodbye!